Congress just passed one of the biggest housing bills in decades, and the headline sounds huge. Trump scores a major win as Congress cracks down on Wall Street investors buying up single-family homes. But here's the real question. Does this actually help everyday homebuyers? Does it make homes more affordable? And if you're thinking about buying in Florida, Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, or anywhere along the Gulf Coast, does this change your strategy? Before we get into the details, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I break down the real estate news behind the headlines so you can understand what it really means for buyers, sellers, and anyone thinking about making a move. I'm George Latos with Zackos Realty, and on this channel, I talk about Florida real estate, Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Manatee County, relocation, new construction, and the decisions buyers need to make before they move. Today's topic is important because housing affordability has become one of the biggest issues in the country. Buyers are frustrated, inventory has been tight, mortgage rates have made monthly payments much harder, insurance costs have gone up in many markets, and many buyers feel like they're just not competing with another family anymore. They feel like they're competing with cash buyers, investors, builders, private equity, and large companies that have a completely different playbook. So when Congress passes a bill that says homes are for people, not corporations, people are going to pay attention. But as always, the details matter, and this is one of those stories where the headline may be bigger than the immediate impact. So let's break down what actually passed, what the headlines are missing, and what buyers and sellers should be watching next. The bill is called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and it's a broad housing package designed to increase housing supply, reduce some regulatory barriers, make financing more flexible in certain areas, and limit how much large institutional investors can keep buying in the single-family home market. The House passed it by a wide bipartisan vote after it already passed in the Senate by a wide vote. That tells you something important. Housing affordability is no longer a local issue. It's now a national political issue, and both parties know voters are upset about the cost of housing. But the part getting the most attention is the crackdown on institutional investors. And that's why part of the story, people calling Wall Street housing crackdown, the idea is simple. If a large investor already controls hundreds of single-family homes, Congress doesn't want that investor to continue to compete against regular buyers for more existing homes. And that sounds like a major shift, and politically it is, but practically we need to understand what it really does. Some headlines make this sound like Wall Street is being completely banned from owning homes. That's not exactly what's happening. This does not force large investors to immediately sell the homes they already own. It does not eliminate all investor ownership, and it does not stop every LLC from buying a home. It does not stop small landlords, and it does not mean thousands of homes will suddenly hit the market tomorrow. What it does is limit future purchases by very large institutional investors once they own over a certain ownership threshold. That distinction matters because if you're a buyer sitting on the sidelines thinking, great, Wall Street is banned, prices are going to crash, and inventory is about to flood the market, that's probably not realistic. This is more of a long-term pressure valve more than an immediate market reset. And that's the part that buyers really need to understand. The bill may help around the edges, it may slow down some large institutional activity, but it may give buyers a little bit more breathing room in certain markets. It may send a message to Congress wants single-family homes to be available for individual buyers and families, but it does not directly lower mortgage rates. It does not erase the price increases that we've already seen, and it does not reduce insurance costs. It does not change local zoning, and it does not magically create finished homes tomorrow. Real estate is still local. Supply still takes time, and affordability is affected by price, interest rates, insurance, taxes, HOA fees, CDDs, and other local inventory available in a specific community where you want to buy. So yes, this matters, but no, this does not mean the market is suddenly going to crash. Now let's talk about why Congress is doing this. Over the last several years, a lot of buyers felt like the system was stacked against them. They see home prices rising, they see mortgage rates making payments harder, they see investors making cash offers, they see builders controlling inventory, they see rental communities being built everywhere, and they start to wonder whether regular buyers are even competing on a level playing field. That frustration is real, and in certain markets, especially in parts of the Sun Belt, institutional investors became a much more visible part of the single-family rental market. Now, nationally, large institutional investors still do not own most of the single-family homes, but in certain local markets, their presence feels much larger. And this is why the issue is becoming such a political lightning rod. People want to know whether their homes are being treated as places for families to live or whether they're being treated as another asset class for large financial companies. And that's the emotional center of the story. It's not about the numbers, it's about the fairness, it's about the access. It's about whether first-time buyers or relocating family or retiree or a young couple can compete for a home without feeling like they're bidding against a financial machine. So from that standpoint, the bill speaks directly to a real concern. But we still have to separate the political message from the market impact. The message is homes are for people, not corporations. The market impact is they may reduce some future institutional buying, but it does not automatically create affordability, and those are two very different things. Now, there's another important part of the bill that may actually matter more over time. The investor crackdown is getting the headlines, but the bigger goal of the bill is housing supply. That includes efforts to reduce barriers to construction, streamline some federal reviews, support more housing production, and make certain housing programs more flexible. And that is important because the biggest long-term issue in housing is still supply. We simply have not built enough homes in enough places where people want to live. When the demand is high and the supply is limited, prices stay elevated. That is true nationally, and it's also true locally in markets like Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Bradenton, Parrish, Venice, Welland Park, and many of the growing Gulf Coast communities. So while the Wall Street investor piece makes the headlines, the supply side of the bill may be the bigger story over the next several years. Because we want housing to become more affordable, we need more housing options, not just luxury homes, and not just rental communities, and not just high-end new construction, but starter homes, move-up homes, villas, townhomes, active adult communities, and attainable options in areas where people actually want to live. That's where the policy and the real estate strategy start to overlap. Now let's talk about what this means for Florida buyers. For buyers moving to Florida, especially relocation buyers, this story is important, but it should not be the only thing guiding your decision. A lot of people moving here are coming from higher cost states, and they're comparing taxes, lifestyle, insurance, HOA, CDD, new construction, resale homes, 55 plus communities, golf communities, luxury communities, and master plan communities. And now they're also going to ask a bigger question. Who am I really competing with? Am I competing with another family, a retiree, a cash buyer, a second home buyer, a builder, an investor, or a large company? And that's a fair question. But in markets like Lakewood Ranch and Sarasota, the biggest challenge for buyers is not always Wall Street. Sometimes the bigger issue is choosing the right community. Sometimes it's understanding the builder incentives. Sometimes it's knowing whether new construction is really a better value than resale. And sometimes it's understanding whether the home that you're buying today will have a strong resale value and appeal 5 or 10 years from now. Sometimes it's knowing whether you're paying a premium for newness, upgrades, or a model home presentation. And sometimes it's recognizing the best value may be in an established community with mature landscaping, proven resale history, and a limited future competition. So this bill is part of the conversation, but it's not the whole conversation. For Florida buyers, the smarter question is not, did Congress just fix the housing market? The smarter question is, how does this affect the specific market, community, and property type I'm considering? Because that's where the real answer is. Now let's talk about new construction. This is where it gets interesting. The bill appears to leave room for certain types of build-to-rent activity and other exemptions. That means larger investors may still be able to participate in communities or projects that are specifically designed for rental housing, depending on the structure and the rules. And that's different from an investor buying an existing single-family home that could have gone to an individual buyer. And that difference matters. In Florida, we're already seeing more types of housing being built. Traditional single-family homes, villas, townhomes, apartments, build-to-rent communities, active adult communities, luxury communities, and master planned communities and mixed-use areas with rentals, retail, restaurants, and lifestyle amenities all built together. So when you're buying, you need to understand what is being built around you, not just today, but over the next 5 to 10 years. Because the long-term value of your home is not just the home itself, it's the community, it's the location, it's the supply around it, it's the resale competition, it's the amenities, it's the fees, it's the school zones, the roads, the commercial development, and the lifestyle demand. And most importantly, it's the type of buyer who will want your home when it's time for you to sell. That's why buying smart matters, not just buying pretty. Now, will this bill lower home prices? This is where we need to be very honest. It may help, but it's not likely to create immediate affordability. Why? Because affordability is not caused by one thing. It's caused by the relationship between interest rates, income, insurance, taxes, fees, supply. Even the large investors buy fewer homes. That does not automatically mean prices fall. If inventory remains limited, prices can still hold. If mortgage rates remain high, affordability can still be difficult. If insurance costs continue rising, monthly payments can still be a challenge. If builders slow down construction, supply can still be tight. And if buyers continue moving to Florida for lifestyle, taxes, weather, and quality of life, demand can still be strong. So buyers should not assume that this bill means they should stop looking and wait for a crash. And sellers should not assume this bill means that their buyer pool suddenly disappears. This is a policy shift. It's not an overnight market correction. For buyers, the right move is to stay focused on value, not hype, not headlines, not fear, value. That there's similar homes actually selling for. How long are they sitting? What are the incentives builders are offering? And what are the HOA and CDD fees? And what's the cost of insurance? What is the resale competition? Is the home location that will remain desirable? Is the floor plan functional? Does the community have long-term demand? And if you had to sell in 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years, would this home still make sense? Those are the questions that matter. Now, for sellers, this bill also matters, but maybe not in the same way you think. It does not mean your home is suddenly worth less. It does not mean buyers are disappearing, and it does not mean the market is crashing. But it does reinforce something that we're already seeing. Buyers are becoming more value conscious, and they're reading headlines, they're asking better questions, and they're watching price reductions. And they're comparing your resale home against builder incentives. They're comparing your home against active listings, pending listings, and recent closings. And they're trying to understand whether they're paying the right price. So if you're a seller, the simple lesson is this. You cannot price based on hope. You cannot price based on what your neighbor asked. And you cannot ignore builder incentives. You cannot ignore days on the market. You cannot ignore condition. And you cannot assume buyers are going to overpay just because inventory was tight 2 years ago. The market has changed. And it's not a bad market, but it's a more selective market. And selective markets reward homes that are priced correctly, presented well, and positioned clearly against the competition. That is why local strategy matters more than national headlines. Now here's my final takeaway. Congress just passed a major housing bill. President Trump is expected to sign it. The bill takes aim at large institutional investors and sends a clear message that single-family homes should be more accessible to individual buyers and families, but it does not force large investors to sell all the homes they already own, and it does not eliminate every investor. It does not immediately lower mortgage rates, it does not instantly reduce home prices, and it does not solve the housing shortage overnight. What it does do is shift the conversation. It puts pressure on large institutional investors, it pushes housing supply higher on the national agenda, and it reminds buyers and sellers that affordability is now one of the most important issues in the country. What is available in the community you want? What is pending? What is actually sold? What are builders offering? What fees are attached to the property? And what are the insurance costs? What are the long-term resale story? And what are you buying? Sometimes that makes more sense than the headline. Because at the end of the day, real estate is not just about what Congress passed, it's about the decision you make in the market you're actually buying or selling. So if you're thinking about buying in Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice, Wallen Park, or anywhere along the Florida coast, make sure you look beyond the headlines. Look at the numbers, look at the community, and look at the long-term value. And before you sign a builder contract, make an offer, or assume the market is about to crash, get clear on what's really happening locally. I'm George Latos with Zackos Realty. Subscribe to this channel For more real estate news behind the headlines, and if you're thinking about making a move, reach out. I'll help you move smarter, not just faster.